Today on the Sane Estate, the devil's shoe size and moral musings. My conversation with Mary Kelley. Welcome to the Sane Estate, where we visit Ipswich, located in the state of mind. I'm your host, John Wolforth, and I neither look nor talk like Rod Serling, but we'll be delving into something that could have been on the Twilight Zone. What am I talking about? Well, every town has its legends. Some have heroic folk tales, others have tragic hauntings, and Ipswich? Well, Ipswich has a giant burned-in footprint in a rock because someone at some point thought that was worth preserving. Now, depending on which historian you ask and how much they've had to drink, the devil's footprint either, A, marks the exact spot where the devil landed during a routine commute, B, is an example of colonial graffiti, or C, happened when someone in 1700 tripped over a rock and told a story so good that everyone agreed to stop asking questions. But folklore is a funny thing. The longer it survives, the more it says about us, our imagination, our sense of humor, and our willingness to point at a rock and say, yeah, that's definitely Satan's shoe size. And joining me today is someone who helped turn this strange little legend into an actual functioning, family-friendly community event, complete with activities, artistry, and absolutely no confirmed demonic activity that we can disclose. Mary Kelley is a community contributor from Georgetown who worked with Dan Levy, my guest last week, to turn a quirky local legend into an afternoon of fun and laughter with some well-meaning yelling. With Mary's vision, Devil's Footprint Day has become a celebration of storytelling, oddities, creativity, and the charming inability of this town to ever do anything halfway. Mary, welcome to the Sane Estate.
Thank you.
I must admit, I never heard of it either until I saw it in the Ipswich local news. They were talking about it, and my wife was like, that could be kind of cool, because we're kind of weird too. You know, we're history buffs, and we're like gothic, weird stuff like that too. So, So we said, what the hell, let's check it out. And it was even more entertaining than I thought it would be. I mean, I did manage to get some video and stills of the event.
And your tidy dress and your good reputation. It will not shield you from the tempter's snare.
I have to say, I never had a piñata like that and was a bit jealous that I couldn't take a whack at it.
Yeah, well, me too.
And so let's say you also seem to be enjoying the event. So, was it everything you'd hoped it would be?
Honestly, yes. I had a lot of hopes and dreams for what this would look like, and putting them into practice, there's always kind of, like some ideas won't work out, some things we have to adjust. If it rained, we had a whole rain plan, and I still am kind of in awe of how well everything just worked, both from the planning side, keeping everything kind of operationally at a reasonable level, like something we can manage, but then also like right. Audience turnout, participation in the panel discussion, how well the performances all went. I really don't know if it could have gone better, especially for a first year of it.
That's fantastic. So then you don't want to do anything better than that. That's what
No.
I hope so. I mean, no, not that it sucked by any means. It was cool, but you know how it is. You look at things, you go, hey, we could do this maybe next time. But
yeah, I think it's less about like, oh, we could do this better, and more just kind of how, if we, we're planning for next year, and kind of how we could keep it alive enough and kind of new enough so that folks who came last year, are still going to get something new out of it, and we can put a new spin or a new angle or a different facet of it without kind of losing like the core spirit of the whole thing, and still keeping it very much within a reasonable, workable level. So less about making it better, more about just kind of letting it grow and evolve.
Absolutely. No, that seems the natural way is always the best, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what first pulled you into this community event kind of thing that you decided that you wanted to create? I mean, I know that you were inspired, and you mentioned that, but we need to elaborate more on that. But was there an earlier project or anything else that sort of like what got you to this point where you were able to have these kinds of inspirations?
I think the inspiring comes pretty easily for me. I've got a pretty good imagination, so I see these things and I have all these great visions and ideas of how it could go, but the actual work involved and putting it into practice and turning it into something tangible we can experience is definitely the shortcoming for me. I'm not really involved in the local community. This was kind of my first big community project. So it really was the team that I was on, like the folks who had kind of more of that practice of turning visions into reality and into an event. Like I could not have done this on my own. And just kind of working together with them, like we all just kind of made it what it was.
So you were basically the spark, and then, the fuse was lit.
Yeah, and we all worked together on it, and we had such a good team, and, every individual brought something different, different ideas, different strengths to the table. So we kind of referred to me as like the initial catalyst, but then, obviously there were so many other ones kind of going down the line.
Right. So, how did you get these people? How did you know who to talk to?
I got really lucky. I have a friend in town, Isaac, who was the one who heard my idea and said, "That was awesome. Do you mind if I call some people about it?"
Isaac who?
Isaac Ross.
Isaac Ross. Shout out to Isaac Ross. And Isaac, if you want to come on the show, maybe we could do something. Just say.
No, he's a lot more active in the community as me, and he's known Reverend Rebecca, who was on the planning committee, who we worked really close with. He's known her since he was a kid. So there was just this whole wonderful network of people, and Isaac was, kind of the focal point for who connected a lot of us together. So I happened to tell him. He said, "That's great." He reached out to several people, including Reverend Rebecca, and then people said, "Yeah, this crazy idea sounds awesome. Let's meet."
So it's a total connecting, event right there. You know what I mean? Like, that shows you the power of knowing the right people and like networking in your community. Even, I'm in business and network for business, but it's like networking in a community is a different idea. Even though it's the same outcome, you find collaboration with multiple people, and it brings good things out.
Yeah, I don't think I ever would have met Catherine or Stacy. I'm Catherine De Silva. Stacy from the church, Reverend Rebecca. I don't think I would have met any of them on my own. I see Reverend Rebecca's newspaper articles, and I love them.
Yeah.
She writes about the birds while she's out on
Rebecca
like her
Pugh.
morning runs.
Okay, I'm
Yes.
sorry. I didn't know her last name, but yeah,
yeah.
I read those too. Those are blasts.
Yeah, they're great. So I knew her from those and just kind of hearing her name a bit, but I don't think I would have met any of them individually. We just don't really. Our spheres don't really overlap, so it was so nice to have a project that just kind of brought different people together.
And everyone was like, "Let's do this." There was no tension between anyone. It was just sort of like we all want to make this a thing. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Right. And have a blast at doing it, at planning it and doing it.
Yeah.
That's cool. So, what do you think? Because turning a local legend is not a simple thing into an event. Turning into an event is not simple, right? So what do you think folklore-based events do for a community's identity, like identifying it both historically, culturally, religiously? I don't know, maybe.
I think it helps, because you and I are both relatively new to town, so like we've heard of this, but there are so many people in town who like they grew up with this story. It was kind of already such a part of their identity. So I think it kind of just helps kind of like dust off some of the dust on it, take off some of the cobwebs, like really kind of just helps people see it from a different perspective, kind of re-examine that relationship of like, oh yeah, the story is one that I carry with me, it's important to me, but why again? Or like, how am I looking at it differently? And I think stories in general are just this really remarkable way that we communicate.
Sure.
Whether it's a story about something that was real or if it's fiction, fantasy, folklore, there's just something like, how have I put it before? It's such an exercise in empathy, I think, like in creativity and in empathy, because you're reading these stories about things that you have no relationship to, you don't know the people in them, maybe the whole thing's made up, but you're having this emotional connection to them. So I think folklore, whether it's, you call it cultural, creative, religious, spiritual, I think that folklore and stories just kind of help sort of tap into that empathy and just kind of help re-spark it a little bit.
Well, yeah, would you say that bringing this type of thing to life does engender the empathy, does build it, or creates emotional bonds with the characters, or because you are making it, bringing it to life, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's some relevance between those two.
Definitely.
All right. Let's fast forward 10 years. What's the dream version of this event?
Oh gosh.
Besides throwing the pinata off the roof.
Honestly, I still daydream about that all the time. I was so thrilled that we had this amazing handmade, homemade pinata. So it's gonna be tough to beat that. I would love to see a way that we're building it, to have more, maybe not for the planning side of it, because once the planning committee gets too big, it's just gonna be bogged down by a lot of, just kind of like
Politics,
bureaucratic stuff, like keeping the planning committee a relatively good size, but still finding ways to involve a lot more community engagement. Something that I was thinking about a lot was, I'm relatively new to town, and if you live in Ipswich, if your great grandparents weren't born in Ipswich, sometimes you're still not considered a townie.
yeah.
So I'm still very new, and it was so cool to work on this event, but this story doesn't mean the same thing to me as it does for people who grew up with it. So finding ways to kind of have some more community engagement involved. I don't quite know what that looks like yet, but maybe just
Right.
more participation, maybe from local businesses or local creative groups, just kind of supporting different facets of the event itself, because we had music, we had a discussion panel, we had a reenactment, and I'd say we did a pretty good job with that too. We got Dan and myself on the panel, and Reverend Rebecca. Tashi Mark was amazing and did the dramatic performance for us. So we had a lot of that already, but just kind of building that up a little bit more. So it's, just kind of tapping more into the community participation element of it is kind of what I would like to see a lot. And I know that that's not a very concrete answer, but there's just so many different directions this could go.
No, but you have thoughts and you have, ideas that you want to pursue. So that's obviously giving credence to what it would, hopefully become in the next decade, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because of course, it would be great if we did it every year. So I think it's fun. You could do make it like a carnival, right? And it's like, food trucks selling, fried dough in the shape of Satan.
Yeah, we were talking a bit about that element of it, because especially the time of year that it's in, that's when all the county fairs are happening. It's when Topsfield Fair is happening. That's when Salem is being inundated with tourists, but they're also having a lot more performances and little markets and stuff. So I was definitely thinking of that element. I had this wild idea the other day of one of those rides that one of those fair rides that brings you all the way up and then drops you and then does that a couple times, experience what the devil felt being thrown off the roof by George Whitfield.
Yeah.
Maybe with some speakers having the sermon going. That's pretty unrealistic, but just kind of the more town fair kind of element of it, or vibe almost. Kind of making it more of an all-day experience as opposed to kind of programming, but there's really so many ways we could go with it.
So being that it was the first year, were there any major hiccups or things that just, wow, I didn't know that was going to be a problem, points at all?
No, I think
Really?
It really...
Smooth as silk, huh?
It really did go really well. I think we had such a great team. Again, just kind of complementing each other. For instance, once we got the flyers made, we had to go hand them out. We had to go post them places. I am perfectly okay standing up in front of a crowd and speaking, addressing the crowd and kind of emceeing the event. I was fine being on the panel. The idea of walking up to a store owner and trying to pitch the idea to put a flyer up was terrifying to me. Meredith McClune, who was kind of, she was the first person that I talked to about this and the first person to go, yeah, let's do this.
Yeah.
She had no problem with that. She just had this confidence that I didn't. So just it's such a small example, but there was just so much, it was just such a well-balanced team that I feel anytime we needed to really get something done, someone on the team felt very capable and very willing to go ahead and do it.
Well, you seem so well-spoken, I guess, but that's not the same as, do you think you don't see yourself as an extrovert?
I kind of don't like the introvert extrovert kind of duality.
Kind of black and white, right?
I'm probably more of an introvert, but some things are just less scary to me, and other things are a lot more terrifying. I have literally fought fire before. I was a wildland firefighter for one summer season, and that
Really?
was a lot, in many ways, a lot less terrifying than walking into the library and saying, "Hi, I'm running this event that's very personal to me. Can I put this flyer up and like, can I pitch it to you?" I don't know if it was kind of a fear of rejection. It was just so much scarier. Social anxiety and the fear of fighting fire are two very different things.
Well, I would think that the fear of, fighting fire, because you know it's the enemy, and you know that you have to take it, you have to kill it, essentially, right? So you have a mission and you understand what the outcome is going to be. But when you go and talk to somebody, you don't know how they're going to respond to you. You don't know if they're going to be friend or foe. So that's my perception of why, my theory of what might be the difference between the two, perhaps.
Maybe. I'm not sure. I've thought about it from that angle. I think there are just also, like, we can't really account for why we're scared of things. We come up with a lot of reasons for why we are after we feel the feeling, but I think that the feelings come first and the rationalizations come after. We can't really say why we love the things we love or why we fear the things we fear. We just have the feeling and then we try to come up with reasons why.
That's deep.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So that's what I think about a lot, which may make more sense as to why I just started thinking about town holidays and throwing piñatas off of rooftops and the symbolism of the mirror and the devil's footprint.
Well, there's a lot to say about that. I mean, the reality of it, I'd like to say anyway, is like when I spoke with Dan and we talked about the concept of emotion, right? And trying to, I think a lot of things are built on emotion, and you're right. It's like you sort of start from that place. That's what drives you to find ways to justify the feelings you have, right? So I think that applies in that case. So I definitely agree with the idea behind it. So this is philosophy 101 right now, like,
I
it's
guess
heavy,
so.
man.
I don't think I ever even took a philosophy class.
Well, who needs to? If you live life enough, you don't need to take a philosophy class. You live it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So fighting where were you when you were fighting fires?
I worked for the U.S. Forest Service for about 6 years seasonally. So every
6 years? I thought it was only one. That's a long time.
Oh, well, I was only fighting fire for one summer. I was usually a ranger for the other ones. But every 6
fun.
months, I would pack up and move to a different place because all the work was seasonal. But I did firefighting primarily in Wyoming.
Oh, cool. So you've been around.
A little bit, yeah.
That's neat. How do you like? What's summers like in Wyoming versus here?
It depends on where you are. I was down closer to sea level, out in this vast expanse of kind of brushlands and ranch lands. So it was hot and it was dry and it was dusty. But when I was a ranger in that same mountain range, I was usually up at like 10,000 feet of elevation or more.
Wow.
And that was beautiful. The temperature, 60, 70 degrees, usually super clear every day.
Wow.
Just beautiful.
The views, I can imagine, right?
Yeah, much more sweeping scenic vistas than
That's
out
cool.
here. So
I never saw it. I'm
Still
stuck
time.
Here. No, I've been across country a couple times over the years, but nothing like spending like a lot of time in one place. It was just quick throughs, So I really didn't experience that much.
yeah, well, that's one of the nice things about being here and having a permanent job is, in a lot of ways, I got this very kind of intense experience. I was out in the woods all the time for work, hiking these trails, going off trail, taking care of the forest, and like really being there for a couple months of the year. But then I would leave. And sometimes I'd go back to the same place. Sometimes I'd move on to another location.
Right.
And I just never really I had like a lot of very like intense experiences, but I never really had the time factor of what it takes to really get to know a place. And that's something that is really nice about being here and having lived here for a few years, not having any plans to move, but also seeing that in the folks around me who have lived here forever, like kind of this sense of place and belonging. And I think that ties back to the Devil's Footprint because, again, it's kind of this landmark of the town. It's this really personal attachment that everyone has to it. And it's cool to kind of be on the other side of that and experiencing it now.
Yeah, that I can imagine that would be the case. So just to clarify, I think you told me this, but I want to be sure. So you are living in Ipswich currently?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. See, In my head, for some reason, I was still thinking you were in Georgetown.
No, I just grew up there.
That you're like, I'm not going back.
No,
only
it's just
2 miles away, but I'm not going back.
yeah.
Right?
I don't think Georgetown has a devil's footprint, so
So like, forget that then,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
What do they got, right? They got what?
7 pizza places
They
about.
got the Crosby's Marketplace, yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Sorry, Georgetown.
So, all right, so you're not really based in Georgetown, but anyway, being here for a couple of years, you've obviously embraced the culture and the feel of the town, and but mostly you spent most of your years so far in Georgetown. Do you feel that there's a conglomeration of different attitudes between like Georgetown or your travels out west or your time in Ipswich that have sort of created the way that you got to here was influenced by these other experiences that drive you?
Yeah. It was kind of a long, winding road. I'll try to make this quick, but basically I grew up in Georgetown, went to college in Florida, had grown up traveling a lot, and like wasn't really
Okay.
particularly engaged in the community in Georgetown anyway. I didn't go to the public school there.
Okay.
So I didn't really have like a strong attachment to Georgetown anyway.
I see.
And then after college, I came back here for a couple of winters when I couldn't find winter work, but I was just traveling, over the country, just doing the seasonal work. And I thought I would stick with it a lot longer. But when I moved back here, like all of my plans kind of just kept missing. Like things just weren't working out. I was set up for one job and that fell through, so I was scrambling to find another one. And I thought I would just keep doing seasonal work for a while longer. I was like trying to find a permanent job with the Forest Service, but I didn't know where. I kept thinking about coming back here, but didn't think that there'd be like the right job for me. And then everything just kind of fell into place, and sticking around was a little bit daunting because I was so used to moving, and it meant giving up this lifestyle of like freedom and exploration. But kind of like the other question, having moved so much, like I got to see what community looked like. I got to
Right.
see what like being part of a town looked like, but I never really was anywhere long enough to really grow roots myself. I just kind of kept moving. I was like a little tumbleweed, going through
The
while
rover.
while other folks, I could see the community, but it was kind of always from this outside perspective looking in. And me being here was kind of accidental, but it ended up working out super well. And now that I'm here, kind of like being able to reflect on these experiences of not feeling very strongly attached to any one particular place, but now
Right.
I'm here and I have that opportunity to make the choice if I want to be, has kind of made me be a little bit more intentional and deliberate.
You gonna stick around?
Yeah.
All
I think
right.
so anyway. I don't have any reason to leave.
That's the best attitude. I don't have any reason to leave.
Yeah.
All right. And so, just out of curiosity, why did you travel so much growing up?
Part of it was like that was just kind of what we did for family vacations. Also, my parents' work just like offered different travel opportunities.
Okay, so that's
So-
okay. That's what I was sort of getting at.
Yeah.
Awesome. So there's a lot there that we don't know about you yet, but thanks for getting us up to speed to some degree. Anyway,
Yeah.
right?
I warned you about the rambling answers.
No,
So.
it's all good detail right here. All right, so events depend on communication, right? How did you and Dan promote Devil's Footprint Day, and what would you do differently today or next time?
We sent out a couple of, we reached out to some different local news sources. We printed out a bunch of flyers and posted them up, primarily in Newburyport, Ipswich, and Salem. Those are kind of like our 3 target towns, because George Whitfield has historical ties to Ipswich and Newburyport.
Right.
This just kind of seemed like the kind of event that Salem, folks in Salem would be interested in, so we kind of concentrated our efforts there, but I also put them up at different town libraries. And then just some different news channels or like kind of online news sources that I don't fully understand. Catherine took care of that. And then a lot of word of mouth and kind of just asking our friends and family to tell people about it.
Right.
Something that we are going to do differently this year, because we only really started planning in March of this year.
That was the other question. How long did you plan?
Yeah, so I think my first meeting with Rebecca and Stacy in the church was in February, I think it was March, so we really didn't have a whole lot of time. So this year, getting the word out earlier, like picking a date earlier, generating flyers and content, and probably using really similar means, but just getting the word out much, much earlier is kind of what I wish we could have done differently. I think our target had been to try to have something by August, or I think mid-July, and we kind of,
Yeah.
it was late when we started getting the word out.
Well, you know how it is these days. You're competing with a hell of a lot of different things getting thrown out there at people. So, yeah, the more time you spend building up the anticipation, the better off you're going to be.
Yeah, and finding ways that, we're going to be one of however many articles in the Boston Globe, but going around, kind of keeping it more community-centered, so going around to different businesses and asking, hey, can I put a flyer up here, different bookstores, different community bulletin boards. The libraries, I think, were a pretty big success.
But you didn't do the flyers, right?
I did some of them. I went to a lot of the libraries.
Okay.
And I just, put some up kind of stealthily on, different boards and stuff.
Stealthily. He's like, don't look at me. Nothing going on here.
Yeah.
It's just an average poster being put up. Anyway.
Yep. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. So the crux of the legend is the battle between good and evil, right? Which has roots in our own morality and ethics, wouldn't you say?
Yes.
Okay. How did this timeless battle influence your decision to bring the Devil's Footprint to life?
I think that there's a lot of relevance in specifically the story that I read, because there were different versions of it. The story that I read, the more that I kind of looked at it and thought about it, the more I realized that there's so much that we could learn from it even today. Because in the story, depending on, what depth you're going to look at it, in the story, it's pretty cut and dry. The devil represents evil, George Whitfield represents good. They fight, George Whitfield is victorious, the devil flees, he defeats evil, evil is cast out of Ipswich forever. And it's a really good story, but then there's also, one of the conversations we had on the panel was kind of how do we separate, heroes and stories from their very human counterparts, kind of mucking up kind of the duality of good and evil and kind of going okay, well, I think one of the questions we didn't get to on the panel was, is there a version of the story you can imagine where the devil is justified in challenging Whitfield? And then learning more about Whitfield himself, the man who was an advocate for slavery and owned enslaved people.
Right.
Just kind of thinking about okay, well, it's not really quite that simple, and we can kind of decide how simple we want to make it. If we just want to enjoy this as the story that it is, that's totally fine. But if we want to look deeper, which I think we kind of needed to have this event, it makes us question the morality of the characters in the story, but then that also kind of makes us have to talk about our own too. Are we comfortable admitting that there might be a version where the devil isn't pure evil incarnate? Can we, is there a version where he's a little bit more, where we can empathize a little bit more with him? And what does that say about us, and how comfortable or uncomfortable are we with that? So kind of pulling apart those threads and kind of mucking it up and making the question a little bit harder to grapple with was something I really was excited about for this event, because we talked about it at the panel, and we didn't want to just keep it kind of black and white, good and evil.
And that's the thing, right? Because when you talk about it's good and evil, or the concepts of a lot of things, and I mentioned this before about the black and white approach that the way we often look at things, and that's not the real world. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's nuance in the real world. There's gray, right? We have a vast grayness between black and white, and that's where all the things really happen. Because there's the absolutes, I don't believe, are what everyone is trying to go for, because it's boring, right? What makes life living? It's the nuance. It's the gray.
Yeah.
Because you don't know how things are going to turn out. You don't know if people are all necessarily one way or the other. And in the story, I looked at it that way, and I would say I would agree. I would agree that perhaps there's a version where Satan is justified in going after Mr. Whitfield, or because of his behavior or his life choices, right? I mean, the guy wasn't choir boy.
Yeah.
He had his issues, but there really wasn't any kind of vetting for someone who could preach the gospel.
Yeah, well, I think folklore is good, because like a lot of folklore, a lot of fairy tales, especially, we were talking about this even at a meeting last night. Like, they're not very long. They tend to be pretty simple. Like, a lot of
Right.
fairy tales are for children. It's a really good kind of elementary teaching tool of like, this is kind of like what we are aiming for. But then, yeah, like as we get older and we kind of realize like, oh, it's not that easy. And maybe there's still, I think most of us would agree that like we're still going to aspire to be good. It's just kind of like, oh, well, where does good show up in the story and what are the interpretations of it? Like it's still a story about good and evil in a lot of ways, but just kind of like, oh, like, are we just kind of blindly ascribing it to one or the other? Or like, or does it exist on both sides?
But you did, that's true, that's what you said.
Yeah.
It is a fairy tale, in a sense, for adults, right? But it also, it clearly defines good and evil. These are stories are. I mean, we have to have an understanding of what is good and what is evil for the story to work, because most people are going to be, if they are in the middle in these stories, then they're not going to know really what is the true outcome. Short stories or quick fables, like you mentioned, they have to get to the point quickly because they don't want to waste time
Yeah.
with all this other stuff, because then the story becomes really, really long.
Yeah, and
Right.
that's why you make a whole day of it.
Yeah.
So you can
Well,
really kind of
there's-
dive in.
And I agree. And I think the panel, I think, was extremely enlightening to me, because, again, didn't know the story, barely knew the story. I think I might have heard it mentioned once or whatever. But, I'm not from here, so didn't know it. And I was like, that's kind of cool. Like this little battle. Like, where's the video? Right? Although it was funny having the, I forget his name, the martial arts master battled the other guy, and that was the whole simulation there. That one worked pretty well, and I think that would be cool if that's extended like next time, or they do some other stuff, or maybe make it more of a parody. What do you think?
We're talking about the performance aspect of it. We're kind of deciding like what parts, what aspects of this we want to keep, like kind of the same, what parts we want to change. All of it's going to go through some change or another, again, just to kind of keep it alive and fresh and just kind of offer something different for the people who have been before. We haven't decided on anything, but we're also talking about kind of different ways we can bring the battle to life. Or in some versions of the story, there isn't a battle. At least in one of them, there's no conflict really. It's just that Whitfield's preaching drives the devil out, and it's with words alone that he kind of like gets the devil to leave. So we're thinking, one of the thoughts that we had was like maybe we examine these different versions of the story, which is another really cool thing about this story, because it has been growing for so long and everyone hears it slightly differently.
Yeah.
There's so many little interpretations. So what would it mean if there wasn't a dramatic battle, kind of like narratively, and what could we explore thematically about it, but then put into practice? What do we do? Do we like have someone having like an epic monologue and like kind of like a theater group like performing it?
That would be pretty neat.
Yeah, we haven't decided on anything yet, but just kind of thinking about these different interpretations.
So I didn't know that there were variations of the story either. Well, like I said, I don't know it, so. But that's kind of cool. I always think the one that he just talks about, that's kind of boring. I want the action, the fight.
I think there's a lot to dig into with the other ones, but I also I just love looking at these stories and diving deep into them. So yeah, it's less action-packed, but for kind of like the themes and the morals and the lessons, I think there's as much to explore there, and that's something that's a part of this event that I really enjoy doing. Like, don't get me wrong, the theatrics are amazing and they're fun and we want to balance it out, but having the time and the space to kind of look at the story and kind of talk about what does it mean, how are we reading it, how does it resonate with us, how is it so applicable today, what can we learn from it, and what does it ask us to like challenge about ourselves, like that's what I really get into.
And so that begs the question, our morals and ethics are obviously tied to these stories. So were the stories written to reinforce our morals and ethics, or were the morals and ethics taken from stories? Which way would you say is more actually what happens?
I think that's a tough one. I think in this particular case, I could definitely see the story being told with this kind of ethical framework in mind, the good and evil. The really famous preacher beats the devil, evil
Right.
incarnate, pretty cut and dry. So I could see that kind of coming with its own set of kind of, pre-ascribed ethics, if that's kind of the right way to say it. But I've also just reading interviews from different authors, painters, any kind of artist, that once you put your work out there, whether it's a painting, whether it's a story, whether it's a song, you kind of cede a certain amount of control of how it's interpreted.
True.
So I think that, it feels kind of like a lazy answer to say it's both. I think in this specific case, kind of given the context of, like, the historical context and kind of the religious overtones to it, I'd feel pretty confident saying that someone told the story with kind of yes, this is good and evil, this is what we should take away from it in mind. But again, people have been telling the story forever, and my interpretation is definitely different than some other folks, and I think that's one of the really cool things about kind of breathing some life back into this folktale and this piece of history, is we kind of get to take some ownership of what we gain from it.
Well, I don't think it's a lazy answer, because I think you're on the right track, because nothing is necessarily so, it's a mutual, I even forgot what the word I was trying to say, but it's basically it's a push-pull situation here. I mean, ethics and morality are infused into stories, and stories reinforce those ethics and morality, because you can't have a story without them. Mm-hmm. You can't have a story where it's like, oh, the sun rose, and it's pretty boring, right?
Yeah.
You have to have a protagonist and an antagonist. Conflict is what drives any narrative, in my opinion. And I think most people's opinion. I'm sure yours too.
Yeah, I don't think it necessarily has to be like an external, protagonist, antagonist, two separate entities, very external conflict, but some sort of reckoning, even if it's a very internal one.
Yeah, exactly. There's got to be, something's going to happen in the end.
Yeah.
You may not like it, but something's going to happen, because something has to happen to create the finality of the story, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a hell of a lot we could go all kinds of ways in this, and this is kind of cool, actually. And I know when we talked initially, I don't know if you remember this, and I kind of forgot. So I asked you something, and I hope it was along these lines, and you said, that's my jam. And I was like, do you remember what that?
It was probably some of the conversations that we were having here, just kind of like talking about like what started this, and me just going like, I just started diving deep into like the symbolism and the lessons and the themes. Like I read things and I read it through that lens. So just kind of interacting with stories that way, or like events like the one that we created, where like there's a bit of whimsy, there's a little bit of like serious conversation, community events.
Yeah.
It was really just it was cool for me to be able to create something that kind of checked all those boxes for me. So we might have been talking about a similar event, or kind of interacting with things in that way, kind of like keeping that balance, or offering like all these different elements of it. And like, I love stuff like that.
Yeah, me too. I think that's it. It makes life more interesting. It really does. I think, and that's what drives a lot of conversations. I think a lot of people's ability to interact with each other depends on these kinds of ideals, to some degree. So, I'm meandering, guilty. All right. Well, anyway, that was great, Mary. I appreciate everything that you had to say. And we could talk about this forever, because I could. I know that. But as you know, there's one other thing we have to get to before we let you go today.
Lightning round.
The lightning round. So, this is the section where we ask really stupid questions in a serious tone.
Okay.
And you just say whatever comes off the top of your head.
All right. I'll try to be succinct.
Krill. Cool. Did I say krill? What the hell is that? All right. Number 1, true or false? The answer you're about to give is correct, even if the question isn't.
Okay. Oh. Oh,
There's no other question. That's it.
Oh, I thought that was like a warning before the true or
No, I'm
false
sorry.
question.
This is your first true or false question.
Oh, okay. Are they
right?
all true or false questions?
No.
I guess you can't tell me that.
No, there's a couple, but not all of them.
Okay.
I can tell you that much.
Okay.
All right. So true.
It's good. I've already forgotten the question.
Oh, the answer you're about to give is correct, even if the question isn't.
False.
Yeah, all right, we'll roll with that. Because if the question is false, then your answer couldn't be true.
Oh, okay.
That's my take on it anyway.
Okay.
I don't know,
I need to think about more. What's lightning round? Let's go.
I write these silly things and like, I know, but then we have to get stuck in these, you know. I like
It's
to
true.
elaborate sometimes on them. So
Yeah.
anyway. Okay.
I'm not that quick on my feet, so you're stuck with me here.
Fair enough. All right, number 2. Would you rather achieve Zen or endless Wi-Fi?
Zen.
Good for you, because I should have known that after you went out and spent time in nature, you know, as a park ranger and stuff. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, limited Wi-Fi, amazing. Endless Wi-Fi, no. It's just no. I would never leave my house.
All right. Number 3, true or false? If it wasn't on TikTok, it didn't happen.
False.
I agree. Number 4, we're going fast now.
Okay.
Number 4, who shot first, Greedo or Han?
Ooh, I still can't remember which version, because I know there's different versions of Star Wars and there's different edited ones. I believe... I don't remember which one I lost the last. It's been years ago.
Just give an opinion. Who do you think?
What was it? I think in the version I watched most recently, it was Greedo.
Yeah, they changed it.
They changed it.
The original version, Han shot first because, you know, they're trying to make Han a nicer guy, and I think that's bull. He was a rogue.
Yeah,
he did what he had to
wasn't-
do, right?
Yeah, he wasn't there to be a nice guy. He was there to make money.
Yeah, and if someone's threatening his life, basically saying, I'm going to take you in, then, and he's dispensable to him, so...
Yeah, and going
Yeah.
back to the whole good versus evil thing, it's never that cut and dry. You know,
The-
Han Solo is a protagonist. They make that pretty early from the
Look
start.
at
But being a
that!
protagonist doesn't always mean that you're a good person, at least right off the bat. It
That's
just
an
means you're one of the forefronts of the story.
That's an excellent observation, Mary. So
Thank you.
for pointing that out. I didn't even think of that. Is it still called a costume if that's simply how you wish to be perceived?
Ooh, that's a good one. I would say it's an outfit at that point.
It's an outfit?
I think so.
Okay, I agree. I think, hey, anyone could say, look at the costume the dude's wearing. It's like, maybe I like pink pants.
Yeah, or a wig. I can't believe that wigs aren't a more day-to-day fashion statement, honestly.
You think?
Yeah, I think, like, you know, we can, like, change clothes, we can change jewelry, we can dye our hair different colors and stuff. For people that wear makeup, like, you can do so many extravagant things, but, like, everyone seems to think that hair is just this really static, unchanging, like, why aren't there more wigs around? I know they're kind of uncomfy and scratchy, but, like, why aren't wigs a more popular day-to-day?
What about toupees?
I don't know what that is, actually.
Oh, you don't?
No.
Okay.
Or I
is
do,
that-
I just don't recognize
It
it.
must be like a very old. That just makes me.
No,
it's
I grew
giving
up
away
wa-
my age here.
I grew up watching the Marx Brothers. It's not an age thing. It's just I live under the rock. I live
okay.
under a rock. Kind
Yeah,
of thing.
toupees is a hairpiece.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, yeah, there should be more of those out there.
Did you catch me a little?
Yes, I knew it was hair
adjusting?
related, but yeah, I just can't believe that they're not more of just like a day-to-day fashion statement.
Actually, it's funny you say, you know, your hair should move and stuff. My wife says my hair never moves. It's like, hey, I can't help it. It's just the way it is. You know?
Just gel it into place every morning.
That's it. I was like, I don't want to bother with it. It's
Yeah.
just done. That's okay. All right. Number 6. If there is truly no rest for the wicked, does that make the blessed narcoleptics?
I don't think narcoleptics, just people with really good sleep hygiene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. We'll roll with that. That's fair enough.
Yeah.
All right. Last one. Number
Okay.
7. Here we go. Does your inspiration always come in the form of lightning and rocks?
Of what?
Lightning and rocks?
Lightning and rocks. No, it doesn't. But boy howdy, what an event it is when it does.
Okay. Yes, and it's getting better. It's going to be better next year.
It's gonna grow next year.
That's
I don't quite know what the shape of it is yet. It's gonna grow.
But yeah,
It'll be
fun.
equally as good.
I'm sure it will be. Absolutely. So, Mary, thanks again for stopping by. I'm not supposed to drum on the desk. I just did that. We didn't break the mic, right? No, we're good. All right. Anyway. And that does it for our journey into footprints, folklore, and the heroic act of turning one suspicious rock into a full community celebration. Huge thanks to Mary Kelley and Dan Lovey for shedding light on the creativity behind Devil's Footprint Day. If you spot any new footprints around town, please let us know, and we'll get you the help you need. Meanwhile, if you want to be a guest on the show, maybe you're thinking, I could do it better than that dude. They probably could, because I'm really new at this stuff. But anyway, look how long it took me to say that. They're probably already turning the show off. But if you want to be on the show, and we'd love to have you, we are looking for people that make a difference in this town, like Mary. We need creators and instigators and motivators, and I got to get out of the rhyming thing, but that's just who I am. Anyway, anyone who makes a contribution to Ipswich, we would love to talk to you, and we want to get you on the show. How? Email guest@saneestate.com or visit saneestate.com to apply through the contact form. You bring the story, I'll bring the questions. Mondays on the Sane Estate YouTube channel, and Wednesday nights, iCam Ipswich, our one and only, will bring it into your living room. 7:30 Wednesday nights. This has been the Sane Estate. Until next time, stay kind, stay curious, most of all, stay sane.